Welcome to SOCAP16. We're officially started now. I'm Rosalie Harden, one of the founders of SOCAP, and it's my privilege to have the honor of officially welcoming you to this 9th annual gathering of the social capital markets here in beautiful San Francisco at Fort Mason. What could be better? Can you see those waves out there? It's crazy, isn't it? Our curator, Lindsay Smalling, has planned what I think is going to be an amazing session for us to get to hear from some of the true heroes in our world, talking this morning not only about what it is that we are about in this world of impact investing, but also why we do what we do. Over the last decade, the SOCAP founders, myself, my husband Kevin Jones, Tim Freundlich, our partner at SOCAP, over the years we have watched, chronicled, convened, and participated in this movement. Before SOCAP in 2006, Kevin and Tim were working to raise one of the very first venture funds for impact investing, and it was extremely hard work. Everywhere they went, they had to explain over and over what they were trying to do. Of course, they wanted to talk about why it was important, but before they could even broach that topic, they always had to explain, yes, you can make a financial investment in a for-profit company and know that that will not only make money, but your money will be doing good in the world. Now, don't get me wrong, here in 2016, it's not easy to raise money for investments for good, but there's a somewhat reasonable expectation today that a potential investor we might be talking with has a glimmer, just a tiny glimmer of an idea about what impact investing means, and at least some inclination to think about how their money could be used for good. Are we there yet? My goodness, no, we are not. Yet the world is changing. There is definitely evidence that we're beginning to see movement in a new direction about people and how they understand their money. In another part of my professional life, I'm an Episcopal priest, and that's the reason I sometimes get the credit for being the one who brings meaning to the meaning and money stage at SOCAP's intersection of money and meaning. And as a priest and a former parish priest, I'm somewhat an expert church watcher, and I can tell you if there is any part of our world that has a hard time with change, it is the church. And when I was first working in the church about 20 years ago, I was cautioned, don't talk about people's money. Sure, raise money for your church, but don't talk about your parishioners' money and what they do with it. That's their business. The idea that it would be a normal thing to ask a parishioner who owned a business what that business did and whether it was doing good in the world or not was really taboo. I know that kind of seems hard to believe in this room, but it was and it still is hard to ask those questions. In the church of all places, a place where you would think conversations about meaning are supposed to take place. Those conversations were taboo. But here at this week at SOCAP, there's a session just about what is the Roman Catholic Church is doing to join this conversation. And this summer, strangely enough, I received an invitation in the mail from the Vatican asking me to come to a conference they are having where they're asking precisely those questions. The church is wondering how business leaders can become agents of economic and social inclusion. And they know you know the answer to those questions, and they at the Vatican want to know what you are doing. They know that something's afoot. And I've been asked to be on a panel of people talking about places where we see concrete steps and actions toward an inclusive economy. And boy, do I have answers for them. We know that here at SOCAP. We know where there are concrete steps and actions toward an inclusive economy, and I'm excited to go to Rome and tell them that. The Vatican wants to know what you are doing. Yesterday, it was so encouraging to me to be with the folks at our pre-day event, Neighborhood Economics, and to hear the stories of folks who are taking concrete actions on Main Street of small towns, cities, neighborhoods, to build an inclusive economy. And today I plan to listen while Jed Emerson and Matthew Weatherly White and Michelle Long and Jessica Norwood tell us about the things they are doing, the stories they are hearing, so I can tell those stories at the Vatican too. I'm going to report you to the Vatican. I'm going to tell them the good news that the world is changing. There is a movement to make businesses operate, to make the world a better place for all, to reverse the adage that the rich get richer. Thank you for doing the work you are doing. Thank you for making the world a better place for all of God's creatures. Thank you for giving me such great news to report. And to start us off this morning, I want to invite Nick O'Donoghue from one of those great organizations helping change the world to come to the stage. Nick's a senior advisor to the Gates Foundation and the former chief executive of the Big Society Capital. And he's going to kick us off this morning and then introduce a plenary that's going to tell us even more good news. Nick, come talk to us.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosalie, and it's such a great pleasure to be here at SOCAP, which is such an important event in the world of impact investment. And I guess I've come here, I'm very fortunate. I've been involved in this movement now for almost a decade, and I've had three very different perspectives of the growth of impact investment. The first one, as a senior sponsor at for the JP Morgan Social Finance Group, which is one of the earliest groups of its type among mainstream institutions. And there, I think, we spent most of our time, first of all, trying to define what social finance was, trying to convince, I think, a somewhat skeptical internal audience that this was something that people would be interested in, and also trying to figure out how we could leverage and mobilize the institutional resources of a firm like JP Morgan to try and help grow the field. And then, as Rosalie said, I became the chief executive and co-founder with Sir Ronald Cohen of an organization called Big Society Capital in the UK. And that was an organization that the UK government modestly described as the world's first social investment bank. And it wasn't really that, but it was the first time a major developed market government had got behind creating an institution that would help really stimulate the growth of this market. And I suppose what I learned from that was that this is a really difficult thing to do. It's particularly difficult to do on the demand side. It's particularly difficult, no matter how much capital you have, to find the right type of transactions to combine this idea of return and impact. And then, as Rosalie said, my most recent incarnation in this field has been over the last year as a senior advisor to the Gates Foundation, which again is brings to this field a very different perspective of a foundation, very impact-led organization. And I think what you learn from being inside somewhere like the Gates Foundation is really the power of impact investment, but also I think the limitations and a recognition that impact investment can help us solve many problems, but at the end of the day will always be a complement, particularly with some of the issues that the foundation deals with, will always be a complement to philanthropy, and that we need both of those things. So the panel that's going to follow me is going to talk about impact at scale. And I think if I'm honest today and people ask me whether we're a mainstream movement or whether we have scale, I think the honest answer is probably not yet. We're still somewhat peripheral to mainstream investment. We're still sort of feeling our way, and we're still in many respects subscale. But I think there are a number of things, 2 or 3 things that give me real confidence that we're getting closer. The first one is the availability of data. And I think for a long time, this is a movement that's been built on rhetoric rather than reality. And we've been built on rhetoric because we haven't got the data to prove what we're saying is really true. Now and you can't build a mainstream investment movement without data, and you can't build a mainstream investment movement without track records. And we are now finally at the point, and I think Jin will tell you there'll be 14,000 transactions done this year. We're finally at a point where we are getting closer to being able to look at and analyze real data that tells us what risk and return we're taking and what impact we're creating. And I think it's important that we do that in a rigorous way, and it's important that we celebrate our successes but also call out celebrate our outperformers, but also call out our underperformers. I think the second thing that gives me confidence is just the breadth of this movement. I mean, we're a broad church. We're not about, there are some people, I think, who try to typecast impact investment as just emerging markets, private equity, or social impact bonds, or environmental finance. We're actually, the movement, in my view, goes across all of those things. And the thread that brings us together is this idea that investment should not just be about risk and return, but should be about risk and return and impact. And I think it's important as we embrace this very broad church, gives us a greater opportunity to become more mainstream, create more impact, and achieve greater scale. And I think the other and the final thing I'll say is I think there are a lot of things happening outside this room which are helping us. One of those things is, and I never thought I'd say this, but an initiative from the UN on the Sustainable Development Goals, which I think gives, and Jin had a good piece earlier this week on this, which gives us a framework that I think we've lacked. And the SDGs are all encompassing. They are as relevant to the developed world as they are to the developing world. They highlight the importance of private capital. I think they're getting widely recognized, and certainly in the UK, they're being taught in schools. And I think that gives us an important framework against which to benchmark our work. And I think up to now, we've lacked that. So I think for all these reasons, and many more reasons, this is a movement that has made enormous progress over the last 8 or 9 years that I've been involved in it, and witnessed just the sheer number of people that are here at SOCAP this week. We clearly have further to go. We need individuals and organizations that are capable of achieving scale in what they do. And that is the topic of the next panel, in which we're going to meet 3 of the people that really are moving their organizations towards impact investment at scale. So thank you all very much.